Rudolph Dahlen. I was born in Rock Island, Illinois on August 7th, 1910 at the home on 15th Avenue and 31st Street in Rock Island. My father's name was Pierre Dahlen, P-E-H-R, Dahlen. My mother's name was Hilda Margaret Beestrom Dahlen. When I was born, I was the third boy, the third child born in the family. At that time, my family was living in Rock Island, Illinois, and my father was a carpenter, and he was working for the Rock Island Lines. He was on the construction crew that traveled from city to city and village to village, building bridges and doing other construction work. My earliest memory, I suppose, would be at the age of about 3. I was walking along the step, the front steps, and I stepped on a beer bottle. And that is one monument, one memorial mark I still have on my foot. I have a scar on my foot to show that when I was about 3 years of age, I cut it on a beer bottle. I'm sure that's a very important item on the document. My favorite toys, my favorite playthings, I'm sure I had a whole bunch of them. I'm sure I had a whole bunch of toys of one kind or another. That was back in the days when it was quite common for boys to like to have a stick and a hoop. And we used to take a metal hoop or like a wheel, and we would run up and down the sidewalk and we would push it along with it was like with a T-square almost, and you use the end to push the hoop around. We would make kites. We would fly all kinds of kites, kites of all sizes, and we used to take kites and we put pins and fasten parachutes on, and the kites would go from my hand all the way up to the air, and then we would flip the string and the parachute would fly off. One of my favorite occupations when I was very young and continued for a long time was I liked to go down and see the trains come in, especially the passenger trains. There were 6 passenger trains a day that went through our village, and almost all of them stopped. The trains went from Beardstown, Illinois, up to Rock Island with connections south going to St. Louis and the connections north going to Minneapolis. And these trains some trains would be only about 3 cars long, and some would be 7 or 8 cars long. And they were almost all filled with people, because back at that time, people almost always rode on trains rather than driving by car. The trains, of course, went through the place of Lynn Center, Illinois. I was born in Rock Island, and I didn't give any indication about the time when we moved from Rock Island to Lynn. We moved from Rock Island to Lynn back in the year 1914, so that I was 4 years of age. And I remember that my father and mother and I came in the preliminary visit to Lynn, and my father was acquainted with the man who operated the local soda fountain and restaurant, so he made contact there, and so we went and we had our lunch there, and then my father went over to the lumber yard, and that's where he was hired as office manager and as carpenter and sort of assistant for the whole operation. At that time, then we moved to Lynn. We lived in a house that was attached to a barber shop, and we stayed in that place for a couple of years, and then we moved to a small house about 4 blocks south of the village, and we lived there for a couple of years, and then my father bought a house right in the village itself, and there we stayed for the balance of the time. We spent 8 years living in Lynn. That was from the year 1914 to the year 1922. And then in the year 1922, August the 1st, we moved from Lynn to Rock Island because my parents thought that a small village like that had no opportunity at all for their 4 growing boys. At that time, my brother Bill was 9, and I was 12, and my brother Ed was 15. My brother Leonard was 18. And so then my parents moved to Rock Island, Illinois, and the first place we lived at in Rock Island was 509 11th Street. And I remember the house there was back in the time when it was quite customary for houses to have just a gas light rather than electric lights, and so we moved into a place that had gas lights. And I remember that in the year 1922, I entered Franklin Junior High School on the corner of 9th Street and 12th Avenue in Rock Island. And I just talked to my brother Bill today, and he says that that school now has been bulldozed. It no longer stands there. It just is one big parking lot. There was a school that was used back in the times when they had junior high school, so it was for the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And it was in what we call a melting pot area. I'd say about a third of the students were Jewish, and about a third were Negroes, and about a third were everything else. And so when we entered that school, I had gone 6 years already in a small grade school in Lynn. And in Lynn, the grade school was right in the village, and for the 9 grades, they had a total of 15 students. They started the school there with the first grade, and it went up through the first year of high school. And they felt very fortunate that they had a teacher up there who had had 2 years of university, and so that she was able to teach not only the first grade but all the way up through the first year in high school. And we had all the students, all 15 students, who met in just one room, and there we sat in our regular seats in the room until the time came to recite, and then we would go forward, and they had a long bench right in front of the teacher's desk where we sat and had to recite our lessons to the teacher. We got our assignments, and then we went back to our regular seats in the classroom, and we did our study and preparation then for the next day. It's rather strange, though, that there was all those students from all the classes that when my brother and I transferred to the city school, each of us found that the work was done at all difficult in a big city school. We all got good grades in the school, in the junior high and in the senior high, and we gradually adjusted quite well to the school life, so that we were in other activities beside just the classroom activities. I'll say this, that when I started to attend junior high school in Rock Island, I was able to keep on playing the piano for some reason or other. I always wanted to learn to play the piano, and so that I was taught how to figure out tunes and chords and all that when I was about 8 years of age, back in Lynn. And then when we came to Rock Island, I took the piano lessons, and so that I remember there was one time when our teacher had a recital in one of the churches in Rock Island. I remember that my number to play at the recital was called "The Storm," and of course I always have liked real loud music, and so here I had a number that showed that played the thunder and the lightning and all that, and also the calm of the storm. And I remember after the recital, the principal of the junior high school came to me and said, "Well, Rudolph, we didn't know that you played the piano. How come you didn't tell us that you played the piano?" And I really had no answer for it. I said that perhaps I thought that I don't know. I had no reason why I didn't tell him, but I enjoyed playing the piano. Playing the piano has been in our family. My father played the piano, my mother played the piano, my father played the guitar, my mother played the guitar, and we always had a piano in our home, and we used to spend quite a bit of time just playing and singing. It was just common in most homes that time, because at that time there were no radios, and there were no TV sets. I remember back in 1921 we went to the county fair at Cambridge, Illinois, the Henry County Fair, and there they had one demonstration, a radio broadcast from Young and McCombs in Rock Island, Illinois, which was about 35 miles from Kewanee, or Cambridge, where the fair was. And people stood in line to get their turn to put the earphones up to their ear and to listen to the broadcast from Young and McCombs department store in Rock Island, Illinois, which was picked up at the county fair in Cambridge, Illinois. Speaking of radios, back in about 1921 or 22, it was quite common then for people to get some Quaker oatmeal boxes, the round containers of oatmeal, and they would take the copper wire and they would wrap around the oatmeal container, and they would make their own crystal set. And I remember the first crystal sets that we made, and then also the ones that we bought. We used to take turns listening to the programs, and so we'd have earphones, and we would take the earphones off the headset, and we'd share them so we could hear the programs over the radio. And the next step sometime later was when we got the loudspeakers, and that was a great big day in the family when we could put a loudspeaker on the radio, and so the whole family could just sit around and listen to a program and then have to share an earphone. I guess that's about enough for this broadcast.
That's enough for the night.
Yeah. Is that the kind of stuff you wanted?
Why did you keep looking at the book?
Well, I don't know. That's what fell outline. The picture you're seeing is after I was ordained deacon and priest in the Diocese of Springfield. Previous to this, I attended the General Theological Seminary in New York City from 1949 to 1950. Prior to that, I had attended 3 years at Colgate Rochester Divinity School, Rochester, New York, for my master's degree. So this is 1 year after my master's degree, and in June 24th, 1950, in the cathedral in Springfield, Illinois, I was ordained deacon in the Episcopal Church, and then the 27th of December of that year, I was ordained a priest in the Episcopal Church, and that service was in the Episcopal Church in Mount Vernon, Illinois. So that's the picture of myself after my ordination to the priesthood in 1950. Okay.